The low melodic hum of happy diners was a symphony to Maya Jimenez. From her discreet corner table, she watched the ballet of her restaurant, Azafran, unfold. Waitstaff glided between tables, laden with plates of saffron-infused risotto and pan-seared scallops. Sommeliers offered whispered suggestions, their silver taste ovens glinting in the soft, ambient light. To the casual observer, Maya, in her simple black dress, might have been just another patron soaking in the atmosphere. But every detail, from the precise angle of the cutlery to the warmth of the greeting at the door, was a product of her own relentless dedication. Maya was the sole founder and owner of the Azafran Restaurant Group, a burgeoning empire of 3 high-end dining establishments across New York City. It was a reality she had built from the ground up, brick by painful brick. Her journey had begun not in a corner office but in the trenches of the service industry. Fresh out of a small town in Texas with dreams bigger than her savings account, she'd started as a waitress at a bustling, greasy spoon diner. Those years had been a masterclass in grit. She learned to balance 10 plates on one arm, to smile through exhaustion, to anticipate a customer's need before they even knew it themselves. She saved every dollar, her dream of her own kitchen a burning ember that sleepless nights and aching feet could never extinguish. She'd worked her way up, line cook, sous chef, and eventually, after securing a loan that no one believed she'd get, she opened the first Azafran. It was an instant, roaring success, lauded for its innovative cuisine and, most importantly, its impeccable service, a standard born from her own experiences. Tonight, however, Maya wasn't the owner. She was Chloe, a new trainee waitress. It was a ritual she performed quarterly in each of her restaurants, working a shift incognito to see her business from the inside out, to ensure the soul of her establishment remained intact. It kept her connected to her roots and her staff sharp. Into this carefully orchestrated world walked Tiffany Vanderbilt and her coterie of friends. Tiffany was the kind of woman who wore her wealth like a suit of armor. Her platinum blonde hair was a testament to hours in a salon chair, her designer handbag cost more than a down payment on a small car, and her laugh was a sharp, cutting sound that demanded attention. Her money was old, inherited from a grandfather who'd been a titan of industry. Tiffany herself had never worked a day in her life, her time filled with charity luncheons and jet-setting holidays, her primary skill being the art of conspicuous consumption. They were seated in Maya's section. From the moment they sat down, a palpable wave of condescension rolled off their table. When Maya approached, notepad in hand, and offered a warm, "Good evening, welcome to Azafran. My name is Chloe, and I'll be taking care of you tonight," Tiffany's eyes flickered over her with dismissal. "Just waters for now," Tiffany said, not making eye contact, already engrossed in a conversation with her friend about a recent yacht party in Monaco. "And try not to interrupt again." Maya smiled professionally, her years of experience forming an unshakable mask of courtesy. "Of course." Throughout the initial service, the snubs continued. Tiffany would snap her fingers to get Maya's attention, a gesture that made Maya's jaw tighten almost imperceptibly. She and her friends spoke to Maya not as a person, but as a function, a faceless entity meant to cater to their whims. They complained that the complimentary bread wasn't warm enough, though steam was visibly rising from the basket. They sent back a bottle of wine, one of the finest on their list, claiming it was corked, though Maya knew from the sommelier's horrified expression that it was perfect. The implicit conflict simmered. Tiffany, blissfully unaware she was speaking to the architect of the very luxury she was critiquing, saw only a lowly waitress, a ghost from a world she held in utter contempt. She saw a girl who was, in her eyes, a failure, someone who hadn't made it. The irony was a thick, unspoken presence in the air. Maya, the unsung hero, quietly endured the disdain, her mind cataloging every flaw in the experience, not her own, but that of her entitled guest. The storm was gathering, its epicenter located squarely at the table of the oblivious snob. The evening wore on, a tightrope walk of forced smiles and thinly veiled contempt. Maya's Chloe operated with the flawless efficiency born of years of experience, a fact completely lost on Tiffany and her friends. They saw only her uniform, not the skill behind it. The main courses had been served, and the table was a minefield of petty complaints and imperious demands. Maya navigated it all with a grace that only seemed to fuel Tiffany's irritation. The richer woman seemed personally offended that a simple waitress could maintain such composure in her magnificent presence. The breaking point arrived with dessert. One of Tiffany's friends, a vapid man named Chad, had ordered the chocolate lava cake, which came with a delicate raspberry coulis served in a small, elegant pitcher on the side. As Maya leaned in to place the dish before him, Tiffany, gesturing wildly while recounting a story about a disastrous charity gala where the champagne wasn't Dom Perignon, flung her arm back without looking. Her hand collided with Maya's, sending the small ceramic pitcher tumbling. A splash of crimson coulis arched through the air, landing squarely on the pristine cream-colored sleeve of Tiffany's couture silk blouse. A collective gasp went through their table. The restaurant's gentle hum seemed to dip for a moment. "Oh, I am so sorry," Maya began immediately, reaching for a clean napkin. "Let me help you with that." Tiffany looked down at her sleeve as if she'd been struck by a poisoned dart. Her face, a mask of bored indifference moments before, contorted into a snarl of pure fury. She leaped to her feet, knocking her chair backward with a loud clatter that silenced the entire dining room. All eyes turned to their table. "Help me!" she shrieked, her voice sharp and piercing. "You clumsy, incompetent moron. Look what you've done. This is $1,000 blouse. Do you have any idea what you've done?" Maya stood her ground, her face calm but her heart beginning to pound. The familiar sting of being belittled washed over her. "It was an accident, ma'am. If you'll allow me, we can have that professionally cleaned for you. We will, of course, cover the entire bill." Tiffany laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. "Cover the bill? You think a few $100s for dinner replaces this? You probably don't even make that in a week. What could you possibly know about value?" She jabbed a finger aggressively at Maya's chest. "People like you shouldn't even be allowed to work in places like this. You have no grace, no class. You're just a clumsy girl who should be flipping burgers somewhere." The humiliation was a physical blow. Diners at nearby tables stared, some with pity, others with the morbid curiosity of onlookers at a car crash. Maya's manager, a usually unflappable man named David, began moving towards the table, but Tiffany waved a dismissive hand at him. "Don't you dare try to handle me. I want her fired. Now. In front of me." "Ma'am, please let's discuss this calmly," David started, his voice strained. "I will not be calm," Tiffany bellowed, turning her vitriol on him now. "You employ clumsy idiots and then ask me to be calm?" "This girl," she said, turning her attention back to Maya, her voice dripping with venom, "is the reason places like this go downhill. You let the riffraff in, not just as customers but as staff." She leaned in closer to Maya, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial, yet still loud, whisper for the benefit of the surrounding tables. "Let me guess your story. Small town, big dreams, ended up here, right? Still waiting for that big break? Let me give you some advice, it's not coming. You're a waitress. That's all you'll ever be. You serve people like me. You don't become people like me. You should have stayed in whatever diner you crawled out of." Every word was designed to strip Maya of her dignity, to reduce her from a person to a stereotype. The label "just a waitress" was thrown like acid. Maya felt the eyes of her other staff on her, the shocked and sympathetic looks from her sommelier, the hostess, the busboys who she had personally trained and mentored. They were frozen, trapped between company policy and their loyalty to a colleague they believed to be a new trainee. In that moment, Maya was completely alone, an island in a sea of public shame. She tried to speak, to defend herself, but her voice was swallowed by Tiffany's tirade. "I want her gone," Tiffany repeated, her voice reaching a fever pitch. "Get her out of my sight. I'm Tiffany Vanderbilt, and I will not be served by trash." The name dropped like a bomb, meant to intimidate and ensure compliance. And for a moment it worked. A hush fell over the restaurant. David looked pale and uncertain. The other diners simply stared, caught in the crossfire. Maya stood isolated, the red stain on Tiffany's sleeve mirroring the flush of humiliation and anger burning on her own cheeks. She was no longer Maya Jimenez, owner and innovator. In the eyes of everyone watching, she was just Chloe, the clumsy waitress who had made a terrible, and apparently unforgivable mistake. Just as Tiffany's final venomous declaration hung in the stunned silence, a new voice, calm, deep, and laced with an authority that needed no volume to command attention, cut through the tension. "That's quite enough, Ms. Vanderbilt." All heads, including Tiffany's, swiveled towards a corner booth. Seated there was a man in his late 60s, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, his silver hair and sharp blue eyes radiating intelligence and power. He placed his napkin deliberately on the table beside a half-eaten plate of grilled octopus, a dish he now regarded with disappointment. The man was Harrison Blackwood, a bona fide legend in the world of venture capital. He was a self-made billionaire, a kingmaker who had built his empire by betting on talent and tenacity, not bloodlines. His name carried more weight in the boardrooms and financial capitals of the world than a dozen Vanderbilts. Tiffany's jaw snapped shut. A flicker of confusion, then recognition, then utter mortification crossed her face. Mr. Blackwood, she stammered, her shrill anger instantly evaporating, replaced by a fawning desperate attempt at composure. I didn't see you there. This waitress, she was so careless. She tried to regain her footing, hoping to enlist him as an ally. You understand, in a place of this quality, one expects a certain standard. Mr. Blackwood rose slowly from his seat, his gaze not on Tiffany, but fixed with a sort of weary disappointment on the scene she had created. He walked over, his expensive leather shoes making almost no sound on the polished floor. The entire restaurant held its breath. He stopped beside the humiliated Maya. He didn't look at her immediately. Instead, he addressed the room. I have been dining at this particular establishment since the week it opened, he began, his voice carrying to every corner. I have found the standards to be nothing short of exceptional. In fact, I believe the service, the attention to detail, and the foundational respect for the customer are the best in this city. He then turned his piercing gaze on Tiffany. What I find below standard, Miss Vanderbilt, is your appalling lack of grace. Your behavior is not just an embarrassment to yourself, but an insult to every single person in this room who understands the meaning of hard work. Tiffany paled, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. You speak of quality, Mr. Blackwood continued, his voice hardening, but you clearly cannot recognize it when it's standing right in front of you. You see a uniform and a name tag and you pass judgment. But you have no idea who you're speaking to. He then did something that stunned everyone. He turned to Maya and a warm, respectful smile replaced his stern expression. Forgive me for blowing your cover, Maya, he said gently, but I can't stand by and watch this. He turned back to the astonished room, his voice ringing with conviction. For those of you who are confused, allow me to clarify. This is not Chloe, a trainee waitress. This is Ms. Maya Jimenez. He paused for effect, letting the name sink in. She is the founder, creator, and sole proprietor of the Azafran Restaurant Group. The very restaurant you are sitting in exists because of her vision, her sweat, and her savings. The meal you're eating was crafted from her palate. The impeccable service you've enjoyed until this interruption was designed and implemented by her. A wave of audible gasps and murmurs rippled through the diners. David, the manager, looked as if he might faint from a mixture of shock and relief. The other staff members stared at Maya with newfound awe. Mr. Blackwood wasn't finished. He looked directly at Tiffany, whose face had crumpled into a mask of horrified disbelief. You berate her for being just a waitress? Ms. Jimenez started her career as a waitress. She embraced it, she learned from it, and she used that knowledge to build a multi-million-dollar enterprise from scratch. Her past isn't a source of shame. It's the bedrock of her success. It's why she's in here tonight, working a shift, to make sure her standards are being met. It's a level of dedication you, Ms. Vanderbilt, couldn't possibly comprehend. The reversal was absolute and devastating. In the space of a minute, Maya had been transformed from the humiliated servant to the revered creator. Tiffany, the arrogant aristocrat, was exposed as an ignorant fool. She had not only insulted a service worker, she had publicly and spectacularly humiliated herself in front of a business icon and the very architect of the luxury she so desperately craved to be associated with. The shame was a palpable force, pressing down on her from all sides. The onlookers were no longer staring at Maya, but at Tiffany, their expressions ranging from pity to outright contempt. The power had not just shifted, it had undergone a seismic reversal, leaving Tiffany isolated in the crater of her own making. The silence that followed Mr. Blackwood's proclamation was a different kind than before. It was no longer thick with tension but filled with a profound, resounding respect. Maya finally broke it. She slowly unpinned the Chloe name tag from her simple black dress and placed it on the nearest table. As she straightened up, her posture seemed to shift. She was no longer stooping to serve but standing as the leader she was. Her manager, David, was the first to approach, his face a mixture of shock and utter reverence. Miss Jimenez, he stammered. I had no idea. I am so sorry. Maya gave him a small, reassuring smile. You have nothing to be sorry for, David. You handled a difficult situation by the book. You were professional. That's exactly what I train you to be. Her words were a balm. instantly dissolving his anxiety and replacing it with a wave of loyalty. The other staff members, the sommelier, the hostess, the busboys, watched from a distance, their expressions a mix of pride and awe. They were no longer just working at a restaurant. They were working for her. A woman who understood their world because she had lived it. All eyes then fell on Tiffany. The color had drained from her face, leaving her looking pale and small. Her friends, including Chad, were already inching away from the table, desperate to dissociate themselves from her social implosion. The weight of every gaze in the room was on her. Facing the icy glare of Harrison Blackwood and the calm, unwavering eyes of Maya Jimenez, she finally cracked. I apologize," she mumbled, the words tasting like ash in her mouth. It wasn't a genuine apology born of remorse, but a desperate, last-ditch effort to salvage a single shred of dignity. "I was mistaken." Maya regarded her for a long moment. She could have been cruel. She could have banished her from all her establishments forever. Instead, she chose a response that asserted her authority with quiet power. "Your apology is noted, Ms. Vanderbilt," she said, her voice even and clear. "You were mistaken indeed. You mistook a uniform for the person wearing it. Let this be a lesson." She then gestured gracefully towards the front of the restaurant. "Now I believe you were leaving. Your bill has been taken care of." It was the ultimate dismissal. Not an angry outburst but a calm, controlled exercise of power. Tiffany and her entourage practically fled, their hasty retreat a walk of shame followed by the pitying and contemptuous stares of the other patrons. As the door swung shut behind them, a spontaneous ripple of applause broke out in the restaurant, a heartfelt tribute from the diners to Maya. Mr. Blackwood walked over to her, a genuine smile on his face. "I hope you don't mind the theatrics, Maya, but I've always said, an investment in character is the best one you can make. Seeing you in action tonight just proves my point." "I owe you my thanks, Harrison," Maya said warmly. "Your timing was, as always, impeccable." "Nonsense," he waved it off. "I was just about to offer you dessert, but I see you're a bit busy. Let's talk next week. I've been reviewing the expansion plans you sent over. After seeing this commitment to quality control firsthand, I'm no longer just interested. I'm in. Let's take Azafran National." It was a staggering offer, a dream opportunity dropped in her lap, not in a boardroom, but on the floor of her own restaurant while wearing a waitress's dress. The incident hadn't just vindicated her honor, it had unlocked the next chapter of her success. Later that night, after the last satisfied customer had departed, Maya gathered her staff. She looked at their tired but inspired faces. "Tonight," she began, "you saw a display of ugliness. But you also showed what Azafran is all about: professionalism, dignity, and respect. For our customers and for each other. Never forget that the work you do matters. Never let anyone tell you that your job defines your worth." Standing there, surrounded by her team, Maya felt more certain of her path than ever. Her journey, from the diner to the corner office, from waitress to CEO, was her strength. The world could try to judge her by a single chapter of her story, but she knew the truth. True worth wasn't about where you came from, but about what you chose to build. And she had built a legacy, one plate at a time.